Okay, folks, I've got 6 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular scheduled session of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, March the 19th, 2019. Before we get started, we got Pastor Susie Pope here with us. If you come forward and give us an invocation.
Father, we come into your presence tonight, and we're so thankful, Father, the people that you've chosen to govern this county. And we ask you, God, to give them much wisdom and every obstacle that would stand in their way to keep this county from growing, God. We ask you to move it and make a way where there is no way. Give them much wisdom and give them unity, God, to accomplish everything that you have set them in place to accomplish. And Father, we give you praise and honor for everything that you do, and we give you the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Pope. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure.
Mr. Manager, let's, if you will, let's lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
It would be my pleasure, if you are able, please rise and join us in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, sir. What's the pleasure of the board to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Motion made by Commissioner Matheny. Second. Second by Mr. Mack. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the first thing on the agenda tonight, we've got a presentation from Sand Hill Center budget request from Ms. Victoria Witt. If you come forward, if you don't mind, when you get up, just state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Victoria Witt. I'm the CEO of Sand Hill Center. My address is actually in Rockingham, so 136 Wall Ferry Road, Rockingham, North Carolina. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you. I do have to say it's sad for me because for the first time in my 10-year tenure as CEO at Sand Hill Center, we don't have Commissioner Copeland here. So it's sad. We do miss him. He was a great friend and supporter of Sand Hill Center and of me. So I really am sad to not have him with us any longer. However, I am looking forward to, if all goes well tonight, having a new county commissioner join the Sand Hill Center board, and really look forward to continuing the great relationship we have with Montgomery County. I have several reasons for being here. First off, I'm here to present our annual county general funding request. You know that each year our board gets together and makes the decision as to how much funding, county general funding, we're going to request from each of our 9 counties. For the 15th year in a row, we are not requesting any additional funding. So the request to Montgomery County tonight is $60,775. That is the amount that you have been so gracious to provide us throughout the years, so that is our request to you. Hopefully you will consider that during your budgeting process. I'll remind you, all of that funding stays here in Montgomery County in support of services for folks who do not have insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, who are being seen at the Daymark Clinic on Main Street. I also want to take the opportunity tonight to brag a little bit on Montgomery County. Thanks to Commissioner Copeland's leadership and also working closely with Commissioner Matheny, there are a lot of good things happening here in Montgomery County. I'm sure you're aware of them, but I just want to run through them with you. We have been fortunate to partner with the Montgomery County Schools, with the superintendent, and provide funding to co-locate therapists in the schools, and also expand the family education, family support program. We have also partnered with your sheriff and with the detention center to have video conferencing in the detention center that helps with screening and treatment of inmates that have behavioral health issues. We have also partnered with the DSS here and the health department and the sheriff on co-location of therapists in those departments. So we have really tried to approach the wide array of places where folks are in need of behavioral health services. So we appreciate that. I look forward to continuing to work with Commissioner Robinson, if you do appoint her tonight, in exploring other options. Also, thanks to the Thrive Task Force that Commissioner Matheny has spearheaded, you are leading the way in making Montgomery County a trauma-informed community. What that means is kids, whether they're in DSS custody, the health department, or the behavioral health system, who have suffered from trauma of some type, people are being trained in how to work with these kids. You also have the distinction of having had all of your DSS staff trained in something called mental health first aid, and also all of your correction staff. And we stand ready to continue to work with you on other initiatives and other parts of county government where you may want to receive that mental health first aid training. And then lastly, the opioid, not lastly, next to the last, the opioid crisis. Montgomery County has partnered with Lee, Hope, and First Health on a grant with Sand Hill Center also to approach the opioid response situation. And then lastly, your first CIT, Crisis Intervention Training for law enforcement. You have been sending your folks to Moore County or to other places for their training. The first Montgomery County-based training will be here in August of this year. So we are very, very pleased with that. That now means that all of our 9 counties have CIT, county-based training for law enforcement officers. So thank you. Once again, just wanted to brag a little bit. Moving on, you also have in your packet the dashboard that I give you each time. This shows the number of folks that have been served in Montgomery County. It shows the numbers. You can see the numbers continue to climb. And you also see the service providers you have and the type of services folks are getting. You also have in your packet our quarterly community report, which I hope you will read at your leisure, and the annual community report that we produce each year. So hope you'll have opportunity to read those. I am going to take a little bit extra time tonight because I want to update you on something very important that is going on in North Carolina in the Medicaid system. This is going to be affecting the county, this is going to be affecting county commissioners and counties, so I do want to take this opportunity to briefly hopefully update you as a refresher, because many of you have been involved with this. For the first time in 40 years, the Medicaid system in North Carolina is getting ready to undergo some very, I'll call them drastic changes. The Medicaid system, as you know, is the insurance mechanism for folks with low-income individuals, families, and pregnant women. It is jointly funded by the state and the federal government. The recently passed Medicaid transformation, and I want to be real clear, I was in Hope County last night, and I think we got the terms confused. Medicaid transformation is about transforming the way Medicaid is handled in the community. Medicaid expansion, which this is not about, is about expanding Medicaid. So I just want to make sure we're talking about transforming the way Medicaid is handled. The way these transformations are going to affect County Department of Social Services, public health, behavioral health organizations like Sand Hills, and community health and behavioral health providers. The North Carolina DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services, has recently reached out to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, which I'm sure you have heard about this, to partner with them. And this is a good thing, because in the past, sometimes the state, NCDHHS, has sat in Raleigh and decided how things should run. We are very pleased to know that they are reaching out to the county commissioners for their input. So what I want to do, and I'm doing this in each of our counties, is go through this with you. And a lot of people wonder why I talk so much about Medicaid. And it's because Medicaid is the primary funder in North Carolina of behavioral health services. Used to be that the state and Medicaid covered the gamut, so to speak, but that's not the case any longer. So any changes to Medicaid does put the behavioral health system at risk. So I'm going to go ahead. Do I still point here? Okay. Medicaid transformation. In September of 2015, the state passed, the General Assembly passed laws to transform Medicaid, moving the system in 3 ways. To whole person care, and nobody can argue with that. What that means is treating the mind and the body, the physical health and the behavioral health. They also want to move it to a capitated model, which is what Sand Hills has been operating under since 2012. What that means is you get a pot of money up front at the beginning of the year, and we have to manage that money till the end of the year. We cannot go back to the General Assembly and say, we ran out, give us some more. So they are moving the physical health end of Medicaid to a capitated model, just like we are. And then most controversial is the privatization. For the first time, Medicaid will be managed, parts of Medicaid will be managed by private, for-profit, out-of-state entities. A lot of states have already moved to this. This will be the first time in North Carolina that privatization is occurring. In June of 2018, the governor and the secretary made a few tweaks to the 2015 legislation and introduced 2 different types of what are called prepaid health plans, standard plans and behavioral health tailored plans. So 2 types of plans to administer Medicaid moving forward. Standard plans will be those plans operated by commercial for-profit entities. They will manage the Medicaid benefits for the majority of the population. These will be folks who are considered to have lower intensity behavioral health needs. Right now, the LME-MCO manages the care of those folks. So there will be quite a few people moving from the management under us to the management of these private companies. The private companies I've listed are AmeriHealth Caradas, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, WellCare, and Carolina Complete Health. They bid on the contract, and these are the new players in the Medicaid arena. We will continue to serve folks with more serious disorders, both behavioral health, mental health, substance abuse, and intellectual developmental disability. This is going to be launched in 2 phases. The regions of the state have been carved up, as you can see, into 6 healthcare regions. The first rollout of these standard plans will be November 1st in regions 2 and 4. You can see 2 and 4 are north of us. One of the reasons for doing that was the bigger population centers. You've got the triangle, you've got the triad, so they wanted to go ahead and start with the bigger population centers. And then in February of 2020, the rest of the state will roll on to this new system. So for Sand Hills, that means Guilford and Randolph, which are part of our counties, will go first, and then the others will follow. Now, what I really am here to talk about more is about the tailored plans. The tailored plans are supposed to launch 1 year after the successful launch of the standard plans. That is projected to be in 2021. These will be specialized Medicaid health plans for folks with significant behavioral health, intellectual, and developmental disabilities, i.e. the people we're already working with. Only LME MCOs will be allowed to compete to manage these plans. There can be no more than 7 of these tailored plans and no fewer than 5. Currently, there are 7 LME MCOs, so the expectation is the 7 would apply and hopefully pass the readiness review. This does allow, however, for some not to make it and say that 5 is okay. The tailored plans will also continue to manage the local money like we're doing now, and the state money and the federal money. Those services will not go to the standard plans, to the private for-profits. We will also take on the coordination of physical health care for our members, and then at a later date, more populations will be added to the tailored plans. The initial contract will be for 4 years, and then the entire system will be rebid again in 4 years, which would be 2025. Now, this is the map of the 7 LME MCOs. You can see Sand Hill Center in the middle in the pinkish oranges. Those are our population figures, which you should be very familiar with. So these are the 7 LME MCO regions. Now to what the County Commission Association has been requesting. The Secretary has asked the County Commission Association to convene a subcommittee to work with the Secretary on what should those 7 regions look like. The expectation is that this will be done in consultation with the existing 7 LME MCOs. Commissioner Ronnie Bill, who many of you probably know from Macon County, and Commissioner Catherine Graham from Moore County right up the road will chair the subcommittee, and they will have their first meeting April 8th. Each LME has been asked to appoint a commissioner to serve on that committee. At our board meeting last week, our board selected Randolph County Commissioner David Allen to be on that committee. I am doing these presentations, as I said, across our 9 counties, and will be available. I know I'm throwing a lot at you tonight, so I'm available to come back at a work session or a smaller group to talk about this in more detail. The recommendations of this committee will go to the Secretary by June 1st, and all decisions that she makes will be final. The criteria for determining the regions is that the regions have to cover the entire state. Every county has to be in a region. They have to meet all the statutory requirements, including not more than 7, not less than 5. And consideration has to be given to how do you maintain the current continuity of folks in treatment, provider relationships, the relationships with the county, and the operational capacity. This is also going to be the one time the state will say any county that's not happy in your current configuration, if you want to move, you vet it through this subcommittee. You may have heard out east, there have been several counties who have been moving around from different regions. So the secretary is really wanting to go into this new world of Medicaid reform with a set region. So that's it very quickly. I am happy to answer any questions. I can tell you from our board perspective, we are hoping that this committee will look at the map and say, 7, let's keep it the way it is. It's working. Why add more change to a system that's already getting ready to change? However, our board is very aware and very willing, if there are other counties who would like to join the Sand Hill Center area, we would entertain that. So once again, sorry to download all of this information on you, but happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Witt. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
are the Medicaid transformation health regions going to be the same as the MCO health regions? Or?
That's what's up for that's what's up for this committee to decide. Should the behavioral health regions, the tailored plan regions, be what they are now, the 7? That's what the committee is tasked with. The health regions, the 6 first ones that I showed you, they have been set.
So there'll be 2 different sets of regions?
Right, exactly. And we have concerns and issues, as you can see, if you took the Sand Hill Center map and overlaid it on those, we're in 3 different regions. We have Anson in one, we'll have Guilford and Randolph in one, and then the rest in another one. So it's going to be a coordination effort.
And this is, I'm sure, too detailed to really get into, but if someone needs a higher level of mental health, are they going to transition to the other plan?
That is, you hit probably the number, first defining the regions, and then number 2 is how do people transition back and forth. Because we all know you can have a mild problem today with depression or an adjustment disorder or whatever, and then need to transition. So we are working with the state on how do people transition back and forth from a standard plan to a tailored plan. That is under consideration now.
And finally, I'd like to thank you for all the help you have given to Montgomery County on behalf of the sheriff and the county departments, and we've taken significant strides forward in behavioral health and look forward to doing more.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Ms. Witt, we appreciate all the information you brought tonight, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it as time goes on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hand this back over because I will be halfway to Rockingham and in my pocket.
Okay, we're now at the public forum part of our meeting. The public forum is to allow anybody in the public to come up and address the board on any county issue that you desire. Now, we do have 2 public hearings tonight and on some rezoning requests. This part of the public forum is basically, if you want to come and comment on the rezoning, I'll give you an opportunity to do that in a few moments. If anybody else here I don't believe anybody signed up for the public forum. Is anybody here wish to address the board, not counting the public hearings? Okay, Mr. Manager, I guess we don't need to go through the rules of the forum.
Yes, sir.
We'll go ahead and go by that. Come to the consent agenda. All the commissioners can see the items in the consent agenda. Does anybody have any comments on the consent agenda? Okay, what's the pleasure of the board on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Matheny,
Second.
second by Commissioner Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so now we're at the public hearings. We've actually got 2 public hearings. Both of them are in the Ether area of the county. Both of them are by the same owner, but it takes 2 separate hearings. And one of them is to rezone a piece of land from an R2 to R3, and the other hearing will be from R2 to commercial. The Board of Commissioners we're authorized to hear and approve or disapprove of any rezoning request as long as it meets certain community standards and parameters. Fortunately, we've got our own resident expert on these matters that goes out and investigates these matters before we meet here tonight. The first public hearing will be RZ 01219, Philip Seacrest, requesting a rezoning from R2 to R3. And I'm gonna call on our resident expert, Andrew Gayhagen, am I correct? Come up and tell us what you found out in your investigation of this.
Good evening. It's been a little bit since I've been up here. Let's see if I remember how to do this. The first item, again, on the agenda is RZ 01-2019. Mr. Seacrest is requesting the rezoning of 1.63 acres of property from residential 2 to residential 3. The parcel is located on Ether and Cagle Roads at the corner of that intersection in Star. It's further defined as Parcel A, depicted on Plat G59A, registered with the Montgomery County Register of Deeds. That plat, a copy of, has been included in the agenda packet as Attachment 1. I also have a full-size copy available if anyone would need to see that. This will be a portion of parcel number 766100660946, and will be subdivided at a later date. They have not yet recorded the deed to officially split the property up. A map is not sufficient to complete a subdivision. You do have to record a deed to update the chain title before it will be split. This rezoning request was reviewed by the Planning Board on February 25th, 2019. The Planning Board, upon finding that the 5 policy guidelines stipulated by Article 4, Section 2.1 of the zoning ordinance have been met, and that the proposed rezoning was consistent with the future land use plan, did vote by unanimous vote of 3-0 to recommend approval of this request to the Board of Commissioners. The Planning Board also adopted the required consistency statement, which is included with the agenda packet as well. During that meeting, I reviewed Article 4, Section 2.1. This section does establish several policy guidelines that a rezoning request must meet in order to receive favorable recommendation. The applicant responses are located on the application provided with the agenda packet. The guidelines are as follows. That A, the proposal will place all property similarly situated in the area in the same category or appropriate complementary categories. As shown on the zoning map included with the agenda packet, the area is currently zoned predominantly for residential use with a mixture of R2 and 3 zoned areas. The nearest R3 zoned area is directly across the street from the subject parcel. There is also some R3 zoned area on Cagle Road just north of the subject parcel. Item B, that there is convincing demonstration that all uses permitted under the proposed district classification would be in the general public interest, not merely in the interest of an individual or small group. The R3 district will add 2 new permitted uses to the property, single-wide manufactured homes and wireless telecommunication towers of up to 150 feet. The new use of single-wide manufactured homes may provide an alternative housing situation in the area that could be perceived as a benefit to the general public. Attachment 3 is a list of permitted uses in the R3 district. These uses are already permitted directly across the street, less than 70 feet from the subject parcel. Please note that all uses within the district must be considered, not merely uses proposed by the applicant. Item C, that there is convincing demonstration that all uses permitted under the proposed district classification would be appropriate in the included district, or area included in the proposed change. Again, the area is already characterized by mixed zoning, including R2 and R3. It does also feature some industrial property nearby, as well as existing legal non-conforming commercial uses. Essentially, these are uses that were in operation prior to the adoption of countywide zoning. They are allowed to remain so long as they don't cease for a period of 180 days. Additional uses added by the R3 district in this case do not appear to be at odds with existing zoning districts or current uses. Item D, that there is convincing demonstration that the character of the neighborhood will not be materially and adversely affected by any use in the proposed change. There's no evidence that the rezoning will materially or adversely affect the neighborhood. These new uses are already permitted nearby. In fact, actually, the R2 district is probably the minority in this area, that most of it is R3. And that item E, the proposed change is in accord with any land use plan and sound planning principles. The staff report details a little more detail how this is in accordance with the land use plan, as well as the consistency statement from the planning board. But the future land use plan, in short, does appear to support additional residential development in the area, again described in the staff report and per that consistency statement. Please note that any motion on the item does require the inclusion of the appropriate consistency statement that's required by general statute. A copy of that's been included with the agenda packet. Staff does believe that in this case, the 5 required policy guidelines have been met. Again, the area does have significant mixed zoning, and it does not appear that the request will negatively impact the area. I can answer any questions the board might have on this.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. K. Okay, now if anybody's here that wish to comment on this rezoning request, Mr. Sechrist, I'm assuming since Mr. Gahagan's more or less approved the request, you're not going to want to come up and say a lot more, is that correct? Okay. Is anyone else here wants to comment on this rezoning request? Okay, hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve RZ 01-2019, finding the adoption of the ordinance to rezone as reasonable in the public interest and compatible with the adjacent land uses. The requested zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Montgomery County future land use plan, and the planning board has provided a written statement on the proposed zoning amendment as required by law. I further move that the board adopts the consistency statement included in the agenda packet and the ordinance amending the Montgomery County zoning map for RZ-01-2019 based upon the substantial evidence presented.
Okay, thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Matheny,
I'll second it.
seconded by Commissioner Crisco. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Gagan, you want to go on into the second request in RZ 2-219?
The second item is another rezoning request for the same area, RZ 02-2019. Again, the applicant is Mr. Philip Sechrist, and in this case, he's requesting a rezoning of 3.07 acres of property from residential 2 to commercial. This parcel is located on Ether Road and US 220 alternate and star, further defined as parcel B, as depicted on plat G59A, registered with the Montgomery County Register of Deeds, and again included in the agenda packet as attachment 1, and it's on the same copy, full size, that I have here if anyone would need to review that. This is also a portion of parcel number 766100660946, and as part of the subdivision will all be included on one deed to divide the property into 3 lots at a later date. The matter was reviewed by the planning board at the same meeting, February 25th, 2019. In this case, the planning board, upon finding that the 5 policy guidelines stipulated by Article 4, Section 2.1 of the zoning ordinance had been met, and that the rezoning was consistent with the future land use plan, voted again by unanimous vote of 3-0 to recommend approval of RZ 02-2019 to the Board of Commissioners. They did also adopt the consistency statement, again included with the agenda packet. As before, I reviewed Article 4, Section 2.1 at that meeting. It does establish several policy guidelines the rezoning request must meet. For the record, as it is a separate public hearing, I'll read these again. Item A, the proposal will place all property similarly situated in the area in the same category or appropriate complementary categories. The zoning map has been included with the agenda packet. As in the prior case, the zoning in this area is predominantly residential use with a mixture of R2 and R3, but it does feature some industrial zone property, several mills that are not in use currently but have been in the past. They're industrial. There's also some I have this mixed up. There is industrial zone property in the area. There's also some businesses that were mentioned by the applicant in his application. Those are mostly designated as legal nonconformities, which are businesses or uses that predate the adoption of countywide zoning and not designated as commercial. That includes the Floyd General Store, the post office there. The roller mill, I believe, is zoned correctly. The staff report kind of goes into detail, but it does appear that during the adoption of countywide zoning, it may have been more appropriate to rezone this area bordered by Ether and Cagle Road down to the end there as commercial, because this is a designated community service area in that previously it had supported commercial uses for the general public. Item B, there's convincing demonstration that all uses permitted under the proposed district classification would be in the general public interest and not merely in the interest of an individual or small group. Uses permitted by right in our commercial districts are all community service based. They include things such as restaurants, barber shops, beauty shops, banks, general use items that the general public would be able to enjoy. Attachment 3, which has been included in the agenda packet, does show a list of the permitted and conditional uses. Uses which may have may be more intensive and may serve to disrupt the neighborhood by extra traffic, or uses that aren't generally consumer-based, would be conditional in nature and subject to additional review by both the planning board and the board of commissioners. That would be a quasi-judicial hearing, which is significantly different than what we're doing tonight. All districts, again, all uses within the proposed district must be considered, not merely uses proposed by the applicant in an application or through any comment. Item C, that there is convincing demonstration that all uses permitted under the proposed district classification would be appropriate in the area designated, included in the proposed change. At this time, I was not able to determine if anything on this property has been done as far as conditional use permits in the past. The county did have some limited zoning districts, as evidenced by prior zoning code books we have dating all the way back to the 70s. But I have never been able to tell where those districts were. I don't have any zoning maps prior to 2007. So where we had zoning prior to the adoption of countywide is very uncertain. The area is already characterized by mixed zoning, as we previously discussed, and any additional uses permitted by this commercial rezoning do not appear to be at odds with existing districts or current land uses. Item D, there's convincing demonstration that the character of the neighborhood will not be materially and adversely affected by any use in the proposed change. As before, the neighborhood is already characterized by existing legal and non-conforming commercial or industrial uses, and this particular portion of this property does feature a legal non-conforming automotive repair business in existence prior to our zoning adoption. That use has been continuous all the way up until today, so that non-conformity has not expired and it's in good standing. And item E, the proposed change is in accord with any land use plan and sound planning principles. The future land use plan does appear to support additional commercial development in the area, as described in the staff report and per the adopted consistency statement from the planning board. This parcel is located directly within the Ether community service area, which are areas designated that may be suitable to serve community uses, post offices, automotive repairs, things like this. As detailed on the included zoning map, the area does not currently feature any correctly zoned nearby zoning districts. In North Carolina, spot zoning is not illegal in and of itself, but the zoning must be supported by a reasonable basis. In the adoption of what could be considered a spot zone, the local government does have an affirmative obligation to establish that there is a reasonable public policy for doing so. Luckily, we do have some established court precedent that dictates that there are 4 factors generally considered to be particularly important in determining what is reasonable basis. I'll go over these briefly. These 4 factors are generally that the size of the tract. Generally, the smaller the tract, the more likely the rezoning will be held to be invalid. However, it is important to consider that the size of the tract within the context of the area surrounding it. This particular property at 3.07 acres does not appear to be at odds with nearby property. It is of average size or just slightly below average size for the area. Compatibility with the plan. The second factor that must be considered is whether the request is compatible with the existing land use plan. As detailed in the staff report and the planning board consistency statement, this particular request is very clearly encouraged by the land use plan. There are several commercial policies that cover it, as well as the community service area designation. Balancing benefits and detriments. The third factor is who benefits and who, if anyone, is harmed by the rezoning. As required by law, we did send out notification letters to all adjacent and adjoining letters or property owners. We also send these notifications out for the planning board hearing. That's above what the state law requires, but we do it as a courtesy just to have everybody come to both reviews. There was no real questions about it. There were a few who were interested in what the situation was, but once they were informed, didn't have any issues. That the legal non-conforming business has been in operation for many years with no proven detriment to the community. Further, immediately surrounding properties are being or have been used for a similar purpose for commercial use. All uses permitted within the commercial district are directly beneficial to the community. Other more impactful uses would be conditional and again would receive individual review by the planning board and the board of commissioners on a case-by-case basis. The final item is relationship of uses. This would be that nearby current uses are marked by mixed-use residential, industrial, and commercial purposes. There's also a mixture of legal non-conforming and conforming uses directly to the south. There's clear evidence that these commercial uses do exist, and the rezoning of parcel B does not appear to outright permit any use that is incompatible with what is already there. It should be noted that the county does use what they call pyramid zoning, where all uses permitted in the industrial district would also be permitted for commercial purposes as well. Essentially, our industrial district is the top of the pyramid, so everything below is allowed to be in the industrial as well. Therefore, any existing nearby industrial property shown on the zoning map is already zoned for commercial purposes. Please note again that any motion on this item will require inclusion of the appropriate consistency statement. Staff does believe the 5 required policy guidelines have been met. While this request may be considered a spot zone, there's very clear, reasonable basis as detailed within the staff report for approval of the request. I can answer any questions the board might have on this one as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, and we certainly appreciate your professional work on these matters. Does anybody want to come up and speak at the public forum regarding this rezoning request? Okay.
Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
because I know these type of things get rather involved, and I know we have some folks in the audience that came just for information purposes, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. If, Andrew, we can just kind of encapsulate this without all the legal, that basically there's a single wide trailer now on Ether and Cagle Road. That is a permitted use across the street, and we're just rezoning, or the board just approved a rezoning that would allow that single wide to stay where it's at. So that's really the only action on the first part. And on the second public hearing, there's a business that's been operating there, as you mentioned, before countywide zoning. Businesses could pop up anywhere, and this was not a designated area in that rezoning process, but because of its locale, it's now being zoned as a commercial use. And so, on the surface, not a whole lot's changed, but I know we had some folks here that are concerned that live out in the neighborhood that that's pretty much what's happened, is it's going to allow one parcel to be able to house a single wide, and the other one will operate as a business, in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I believe that this property is close to the Montgomery County Convenience Site, Waste Site.
Correct, it's right across the street on the top corner of the property.
Okay. Any other questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve RZ 02-2019, finding the adoption of the ordinance to rezone is reasonable in the public interest and compatible with adjacent land uses. The requested zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Montgomery County Future Land Use Plan, and the Planning Board has provided a written statement on the proposed zoning amendment as required by law. I further move that the board adopts the consistency statement included in the agenda packet and the ordinance amending the Montgomery County zoning map for RZ 02-2019 based upon the substantial evidence presented.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Matheny to approve this request.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
Second by Commissioner Mack. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Okay, I believe we're down to the county manager's report.
Chairman, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have 3 action items tonight under the county manager's report. All of those involving awarding of bids. Fortunately, a good deal of the funds for these projects is not local dollars that we've been able to secure state and federal funds for it. I'll ask Mr. Hildreth to come up to discuss items number 2 and 3, which are water projects at Fairway Shores, which the board has been working on a long time as one of their top priorities. I will handle the first action item, which is fencing at the Montgomery County Public Airport. You have included in your packet a recommendation of award from AvCon, our engineers of record, and you have the bid tabulations. The low bidder for this 5,461 foot of linear 8-foot chain link fence, which will go down Clayola and along the back as a part of phase 1, is Sierra Structures, and their low bid was $465,560.29. As you noticed in your packet, that was a good deal higher than the project estimate, but the county does receive non-primary entitlement funds from the federal government to maintain our airport and to do such improvements as these, safety improvements. We work with the North Carolina Department of Aviation, which is a division of the Department of Transportation, and they really oversee our prioritization. And we've got the fuel farm coming out there now, and with that increased traffic becomes issues of pilot safety, and fencing was high on their list of things they wanted the county to do. And so even though the bids came in 32% higher, that we will be using those federal dollars and no county funds will be required for this project. But if there's not any questions, I would ask the board to approve the recommendation of award, the bid results, and to allow us to enter into a contract with Sierra Structures and AvCon to get this project rolling.
Thank you. Any questions of the manager? What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we choose Sierra Structures to do this project.
Motion to accept Sierra Structures made by Commissioner Crisco,
I will second the motion.
second by Commissioner Mack. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Hildreth, I'll ask you to come forward to talk about another 2 projects that came in over budget. Fortunately, not as bad as mine.
Thank you. Yeah, we were fortunate. You have before you 2 resolutions for tentative award. Both are pertaining to the Fairway Shores Water Main Replacement Project that's been prioritized by the county and staff for years, and we're pleased to be at this point at this time. Both projects, well, they're separated due to funding, due to the state Division of Water Infrastructure grant and also loans we received for the northern portion of the project. But both were consecutive or at the same time. They were advertised for bids on March 12th, and April, and bids were opened on March 12th for both projects. We had 4 bids. The same 4 companies bid on both jobs, with the low bidder being Terry's Plumbing and Utilities out of Ashburn for both the northern section and the southern section. You have in your packets the bid tabulations and a breakdown of unit cost bids and a discussion of bids from our engineer. The reason this is a tentative award is because the contractor does owe us certain documents in order for us to move forward, but the payment and performance bonds, they will not trigger those until they get an award in their hand, which makes sense. It costs them a few dollars to produce those. So each item taken separately is Fairway Shores North project to tentatively award it to Terry's Plumbing and Utilities of Ashburn for their low bid of $671,977. which was slightly over budget, but within the established project budget that the board adopted in its annual budget process.
Okay. How quickly will this project move forward if it's approved?
Contract documents say 60 days from the time they receive, no more than 60 days from the time they receive a notice of award. They will have a notice to proceed in less than 60 days.
So the first thing we're considering is just item 2, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Anybody got any questions on this item? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the tentative award as recommended.
Motion made by Commissioner Matheny, second by Commissioner Robinson. Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
I apologize, Chairman, I said it was slightly over budget. It was slightly over the engineer's estimate, but under our established budget. The second one is or I guess the third action item is Fairway Shore South. Again, Terry's Plumbing and Utilities was the low bidder out of 4 for $504 and $504,394. Again, slightly over the engineer's estimate, but within the budget established during our budgeting process. So I'll be happy to answer any questions related to these as well.
Any questions?
Is this project gonna solve the pressure issue? Is that the?
Yes, sir, that's the basis of the project, is to solve the pressure and volume issues. It's not bad during the winter, but as you know, a lot of people take advantage of our lakes during the summer, and as people come and visit their vacation homes or populate the area, right now the developer who put them in, they put in subpar size and material, and so they do have pressure and volume problems as well. And this project does replace all the 2, 3-inch lines with the majority of 6 around the major loop, and some of the spurs, some of the cul-de-sacs will have 4-inch lines on them.
Will this project improve more or less all of Fairway Shores?
Yes, it's every bit of it.
Okay. Any further questions?
Just comment, also the addition of fire hydrants in a fairly
That's
densely
correct.
populated subdivision.
The size lines that are in the ground now will not support fire hydrants. Years ago, the county did run one line from Lilies Bridge Road across country into the Fairway Shores North Division. And so they have one hydrant to serve the whole subdivision now. I can't recall off the top of my head how many hydrants, but they're every 500 or 1,000 foot.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Chris. What's the pleasure of the board on action item 3?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we tentatively award the Fairway Shores North Plumbing Project to Terry Plumbing, water hydrant replacement project to Terry Plumbing. And
Motion made by Commissioner Mack,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Crisco. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Chris.
Chairman, the next item under my report is board appointments. We have 4, and I apologize for being listed as 3, but they're really 4 appointments. The first one is the appointment of Commissioner Dottie Robinson to fill the seat of Anthony Copeland on the Sand Hill Center Board. Dottie, obviously, a lifetime in social services and dealing with the Sand Hill Center, so this is certainly something that is in her wheelhouse. And so that's the first recommendation to fill that board appointment with Commissioner Robinson.
That does require action, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay, any questions about appointing Dottie Robinson to the Sand Hill Center Board? What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make the motion that we.
Motion made to approve Dottie
Right.
from Commissioner Crisco,
I will second it.
second from Commissioner Mack. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Chairman, the next one is a committee that you serve on, the Montgomery County Child Fatality Prevention Team. The recommendation is for Teresa Cottle to be added to that prevention team.
Okay. In fact, Teresa attended the last meeting, she's just familiarize herself with what goes on, so. Any questions on appointing Teresa Cottle to the Montgomery County Child Fatality Prevention Task Force? What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make that motion, we appoint
Motion
Ms.
made-
Cottle.
Motion made by Commissioner Crisco to appoint Teresa Cottle,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Matheny. All in favor? Opposed?
The next one is to the Montgomery County Planning Board. Each of the commissioners get to make an appointment to the planning board, and we saw a glimpse today with Andrew's report that the planning board took this up before, and Mr. Harvey Mack has served on the planning board. The first one is Amy Fryery. She is Chairman Wayne Wooten's appointee to the planning board, and that needs approval by the entire board.
Okay. Any questions on appointing Amy Fryery to the planning board? Amy is an employee at MCC. I'm in the Lions Club with her in Disco, so I know Amy quite well. Any questions on her? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move that we appoint.
Make a motion. Motion made by, I'm sorry, motion made by Commissioner Mack,
Second.
second by Commissioner Matheny. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
The last board appointment on the agenda is Ms. Velvet Motzinger to the Montgomery County Planning Board. You're all familiar with Ms. Motzinger. She's in attendance as always, and she's very astute and been a great resident of the county and gets involved. And for those reasons and many others, Commissioner Dottie Robinson has asked her to serve as her appointment to the Planning Board, and we certainly endorse that recommendation.
Any questions on Ms. Motzinger? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve Ms. Motzinger.
Motion made by Commissioner Matheny,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Robinson. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Coming up next month will be the Board of E&R. And so E&R will go into session. That will be prior to the commissioners' meeting. I think we're looking at a start time around 1 o'clock. Right now, we have 16 appeals of property values, and so we will need at least 3 commissioners to populate that E&R board. We'll certainly invite Commissioners Mack and Robinson to come in prior to that E&R session to sit down with me and the folks from the tax office to do a primer on E&R and what the responsibility of the board is. And you have to have 2 sessions, and so right now we're scheduled for the date of commissioners' meetings, which would be April, I think I don't have the date from me, April 16th. And then the May meeting will be the final date, and we'll close, that's May 21st. Okay? And so just wanted to pass that along, but the clerk will be sending out information regarding that. Included in my report always is the fine work that the folks populating the audience here, the staff of the county, and I certainly, as always, appreciate the fine work they're doing. We've got a lot going on, and I certainly appreciate the commissioners. Chairman Wooten and Commissioner Crisco have been working with us and the fire departments to evaluate the 2-cent fund and how we can continue to meet the needs of our volunteer fire force. And Commissioner Robinson and Matheny have been working on the Council on Aging and how we can continue to deliver services to the aged. So I appreciate what both sides of the room are doing, and it's a fine team to work with. But I'll be glad to answer any questions, or I know they would be pleased as well.
Anyone have any questions of any of the staff? And Matthew, we appreciate your work.
It's easy with folks like y'all.
Hey. Is that all?
Unless there's any questions.
Anything further from anybody in the audience? Hearing none? Do I need a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, made by
I'll
Commissioner
second
Matheny, second by Commissioner Briscoe. Meeting adjourned.